Whittingdale, who has 3 minutes to answer the urgent question from Julian Knight. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Lord Dyson's report makes shocking reading. It details not just an appalling failure to uphold basic journalistic standards, but also an unwillingness to investigate complaints and to discover the truth. That these failures occurred at our national broadcaster is an even greater source of shame. The new leadership at the BBC deserves credit for setting up an independent inquiry and for accepting its findings in full. However, the reputation of the BBC, its most precious asset, has been badly tarnished, and it is right that the BBC board and wider leadership now consider urgently how confidence and trust in the corporation can be restored. It is not for the government to interfere in editorial decisions, but it is the job of government to ensure that there is a strong and robust system of governance at the BBC with effective external oversight. It was to deliver this that we made fundamental changes when the BBC's charter was renewed in 2015-16. Since then, the BBC Trust has been replaced by a more powerful board with an external regulator, Ofcom, responsible for overseeing the BBC's content and being the ultimate adjudicator of complaints. We also made provision at that time for a mid-term review by the government to ensure that the new governance arrangements are working effectively. That review is due next year, but work on it will start now. In particular, we will wish to be satisfied that the failures which have been identified could not have occurred if the new governance arrangements had been in place. The BBC board has also announced today its own review, led by the senior independent director and 2 non-executive members of the BBC's editorial guidelines and standards committee. That review will examine editorial oversight, the robustness and independence of whistleblowing processes, and the wider culture within the BBC. It will take independent expert advice and will report by September. Mr. Speaker, in an era of fake news and disinformation, the need for public service broadcasting and trusted journalism has never been stronger. The BBC has been and should be a beacon, setting standards to which others can aspire. That it has fallen short so badly has damaged its reputation both here and across the world. The BBC now needs urgently to demonstrate that these failings have been addressed and that this can never happen again.
Let's go to the Chair of the Select Committee, Julian Knight. Julian.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Lord Dyson's report was utterly damning. Put simply, Mr. Bashir obtained fame and fortune by instituting document forgery and callously scaring a mentally vulnerable woman. Not a mistake, as he claims in the Sunday Times, but something with more than the whiff of criminality about it. The BBC then covered this up, blackballing whistleblowers and ensuring its own reporters didn't report on Bashir. But it didn't stop there. The BBC rehired Bashir, who they know was a liar, promoted him, and extraordinarily for the BBC, allowed him to moonlight for their main commercial rival. Mr. Munro, head of news gathering, greeted Bashir's return by citing his excellent track record in enterprising journalism. My sources suggest, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Bashir wasn't interviewed, he was simply appointed. Hardly a highly competitive process. Does the Minister agree with me that Dyson leaves still more unanswered questions, such as who was precisely involved in the 25-year cover-up and instituted the action against whistleblowers? Was Bashir rehired in essence so that he would keep his mouth shut? Did Lord Hall actually make the decision to rehire, or was it in fact Mr. Munro? Finally, the BBC has announced a review into some of these matters and how robust its current practices are. But does the Minister agree with me that a good starting point will be to ensure the investigative panel is actually diverse, as yet no women are included? Ironic, considering the victim of Mr. Bashir was a woman. Shouldn't whistleblowers be compensated? And the matter of BBC culture need to be considered. The us and them between management and reporters, the kowtowing to so-called talent at the expense of the BBC's own editorial guidelines. And does he also share with me the alarm that Mr. Davey has recently removed the sole voice for editorial policy from the BBC's Executive Committee? And what does the Minister see as the long-term implications for the BBC's charter?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I start by thanking my honourable friend and congratulating him on his urgent question. He is maintaining the fine tradition of the DCMS Select Committee asking probing and incisive questions. The questions he raises are indeed valid ones. On the particular point he makes about the process by which Martin Bashir was recruited to return to the BBC and his subsequent resignation only just a couple of weeks ago, these are matters which I know that the Director General is investigating urgently, and I would expect him to be providing a fuller account of exactly what happened very shortly. However, I know that my honourable friend will be wanting to examine the BBC on this question and indeed on the other very valid questions that he raises regarding the composition of the panel, its diversity and the protection in place for whistleblowing. These are important questions which need to be addressed, and my honourable friend in his select committee, I'm sure, will do so.